Hey guys, the Camo Christian here, and today I'm going to be talking about why atheism doesn't make sense.
Hi Bruce, this is Peter, also known as Ethel here, and you're getting special treatment because I thought, since you're so young, you could probably deal with a, hopefully, friendly face. I am, as we put it, an atheist, one who has spent the last 7 years making videos, with the last 5 of those being specifically focused around religion and humanism. I came across your video and saw that you had a few responses, but not many seem to be detailing the major problems we in the secular community have with what you're about to say. So hopefully I can remedy that and offer you a little understanding.
Aside from the fact that there are numerous facts to prove that God exists, there's numerous facts to prove that Jesus existed, there's all this proof in the world, so, to deny it, first off, doesn't make any sense.
Well, Bruce, the problem with this is that much of the proclaimed evidence in support of a deity does not stand up to scrutiny whatsoever. It's one thing to parrot the claim you have been told time and time again at Sunday church. It's another thing entirely to actually step up and supply valid evidence for said claim. In future, you may want to reference some cases throughout your video and link them in the description box, as it certainly makes for a better conversation.
But then you have the fact that atheism does not take away the pain. It just takes away the hope. And, I don't understand why anybody would want to live like that. Live thinking that there is nothing after we die. If there is nothing after we die, then why are we here? What's the point? But since God is real and since Jesus is real, there is a point. We prove ourselves and, we choose to follow Him freely so that we will one day be with Him in heaven. And, so that's just the first reason it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think you have confused what is the case with what you'd like to be the case. Just because you would like something to be the case does not then make that the reality. I would love the world to be without poverty, without war and disaster. This, however, has no effect on reality whatsoever, beyond the fact that these desires can lead to actions which can lead to these things. The only valid reason for believing something is or is not the case is a presence or absence of evidence. The only question you should be asking yourself when it comes to your beliefs is, does the evidence agree with me on this? And if not, discard of said belief. However, there are other issues with your argument. For starters, we have sources of hope and meaning that are non-theistic in nature. The humanist philosophy, for example, argues that life has value for the very fact that it is short, and, therefore, is precious. Rather than being dissatisfied with the life we know we have, in an ill-guided pursuit for another, we learn to enjoy the wonder on offer by the universe, both big and small. I hold the past in fond heart, I embrace the moment in joy, and I await the future in hope. And because we can feel this way, we can see others do so as well. An act which creates a connection between us called empathy. That is why I will only pursue my happiness if it does not invade another person's ability to do so themselves, giving us the basis of liberty. Meaning cannot be handed out by some supernatural being, it is a path to be explored in life. If you would like a thought experiment, then I suggest considering the following. If I was to ask if the afterlife is all there is in the end, then what is the point to said afterlife? Surely there must be a greater afterlife which offers the first meaning. How would you respond? Can you see the problems with your own argument from these cases?
The second reason is I don't understand why in the world an atheist would go out of their way to try and disprove God. Because one, they're wrong, and then two, there's really nothing in it for them. You know, Christians prove God, and, you know, we feel better, you know, knowing where we're going to go when we die. You know, we feel better, you know, when we convert people, you know, help people find God, because then they'll be in heaven with us too. They'll come to heaven with us. But, you know, like I said, for atheists, there is no point. It just seems like to me that the only point is maybe to have something to fight against, to think that they're smarter than we are.
Well, considering my experience in the secular community here on YouTube, perhaps I can shed some light on that. There are many reasons, both valid and invalid, as to why a person would partake in counter-apologetics. That is to say, they are critical of the proposition that a God exists, not the attempts to disprove a God as you put it. The phrase disproven would suggest that you have in fact proven something with reasonable evidence. That's not the case for any theist throughout the history of mankind. One simple reason is the pursuit of knowledge. Humanism, for example, holds to the ideal that knowledge is the path to a better future, not just for the individual, but for everybody, the humanity as a whole. Dark Ages exist in periods where a single religion dominated all other forms and an unquestionable sacred canopy was formed. Said canopy discouraging critical thought and thus hinders science. To combat this, we apply critical thought to all areas of life, including the supposedly sacred. Then there is the fact that religion is not just about the individual. Christianity in particular has invaded every area of secular life, enforcing laws which deny portions of society their basic rights on proclaimed divine principle. If I came into your home and began ordering you about, would you just keep your head down and do so as I order you? Or would you respond critically? If the latter was your choice, then why would we remain silent as your religion is used as a means to invade people's bedrooms, deny them protections under the law, and even dictate their bodily autonomy, something not even a doctor has the right to do? Then there is the fact that this is the one life we as human beings know we have. So to see you waste yours on a wild goose chase for a promised afterlife you have no guarantee of is heartbreaking. If you truly believe heaven has been proven, then I ask you why you think even the most devout Christian cries at a funeral, no matter how certain they are that their beloved one would go to heaven.
But they're not. They don't actually research the facts as much. You know, I've met some atheists who, what they'll do is they will take what the Bible says and they will, you know, quote it out of context to try and make it say anything that they want to. And, you know, that's just not how it works. They try and do that to debunk God, but, you know, it doesn't work like that.
Sadly for you, your typical atheist has a far better grasp of the Bible than most Christians. You see, we are still currently in the generation where most atheists have deconverted from the religion they were raised as, whilst most believers are just that, raised as believers, not actually knowing what their scripture says. It's so often the case that it's an expression. Nothing creates atheists quite like the Bible. As for the out-of-context argument, this rarely has any substantial basis. Typically, any passage with which the apologist disagrees with can only be taken out of context, and when you ask them for the proper context of, say, killing every firstborn in Egypt, including that of the servants, or ordering the massacre of every Midianite, including the captive boys, those already taken as prisoners, who offer no challenge, are no threat, only sparing the virgin girls who were then raped, we never seem to receive an answer on that question. If you could offer the context of these passages which justify what happened, then by all means do so. But don't just cry out of context, as that's not going to sit well with us at all, and you'll be picked apart rather quickly.
Another thing is, why in the world would an atheist be moral? Like, I understand that there can be moral atheists, and I do have a few atheist friends that I'm, trying to work on, but why in the world would you be a moral atheist? See, there's no point in it. If you don't believe that life after death is a thing, then as long as you're not going to jail, there's no point in being a moral atheist.
Well, there's the fact that we are a social species, and living in isolation can actually drive a person to suicide. If I am a horrible person, I will be ostracized or, as you mentioned, arrested. But said arrest won't be done out of spite. It will be done in attempts to help correct me so I don't re-offend, or if I'm too dangerous as an individual, I will be isolated in a microcosm where I can interact with others but remain under observation. But possibly the strongest reason would be my own guilt if I was indeed a terrible person. You see, I have actually stolen, raped and murdered as much as I want to. It just so happens to be that said amount on either of those things is 0, and that's the case for most people. God doesn't prevent people doing bad things. Rape and murder were far more frequent in the times of religious dominance. So religion has no effect on bad people. What it does allow for, however, is for bad people to manipulate good people into doing bad things. From the genocide of Native Americans to the rise of Nazi Germany, religion has been used as an excuse for some of the world's worst atrocities. Even Stalin of Soviet Russia reformed the Russian Orthodox Church so that he could proclaim the actions of the state to be divinely ordained, thus pacifying dissent. Maybe think about that one for a while.
So, it's just a few things that I thought of that I felt led to say. If you guys have anything else, leave it in the comments. And, if you're an atheist, please tell me why. Please answer some of my questions, because it doesn't make sense to me at all. So, thank you guys for watching. God bless, and keep the faith. Talk to y'all later.
Well, now that you have my answers, hopefully you can understand atheists a little better, as well as consider the possibility that your current source of information is a little naive about said topic. I may take some time to respond to a few other things you raise in your videos. However, if you have any further questions, then please never be too shy to ask. I'm always here. So take care, Bruce, and I'll see you around. There are a few things which I'd just like to add here at the end of this video. The first is a massive thank you to everyone who has ever donated to me via Patreon. Your fantastic support has given me the ability to keep this channel going, and I hope to continue producing content in the years to come. Secondly, I would like to thank anyone who has ever interacted with this channel. Your shares, likes and dislikes, as well as your comments of both approval and disapproval, have ensured constant feedback, allowing me to improve my work. Last of all, I would like to express my desire that you treat any of the people displayed throughout the video with respect. Whilst it is true that ideas do not demand respect, and there are many in fact which deserve reprehension, we must be careful on how we tackle said ideas in ensuring we are not simply targeting the person. In short, be the compassionate side of reason. So take care, and I'll see you next time.